Okay, guys, we're going to talk today about checking oil, checking our fluids on our equipment and proper maintenance and cycles on hours on when to get your oil changed and whatnot. So, before we start checking oil, we're going to do a visual inspection around the machine. We're going to walk around the perimeter. We're going to look at the base. We're going to walk up to it. We're going to look at the turntable. If you've been spinning around, it'll be drips on the tracks. You'll see consistency there. Or if you walk up to a loader, you're going to peek up under the belly pan there and see if you see any. You'll see it dripped under the belly pan. You'll see where a joint or where a plate is, and then where it's been dripping, or it maybe have a little puddle on the ground. You're going to tap your finger in it. You look at it, and if it's a little bit clear, kind of an amber, like a coffee tint or a tea tint, there it's more likely hydraulic fluid. Okay, if it's in a thick kind of viscous feeling, it's more like syrup. That's going to be hydraulic. If you tap it and just is like almost like WD-40 feeling or something, oily slash lubricant feeling, it's probably diesel. Okay, and you can smell it. It smells like diesel a little bit there. If it's black, it's going to be engine oil. All diesels, you can change them right out of the gate, and it's going to be black. Okay, so if you're seeing black oil, it's diesel engine oil, and that usually is a filter issue, or you've got some other major problems there. Hydraulic issues are kind of common on equipment. Hydraulic leaks are common to have issues. The hoses rub. They sit there and vibrate, and they'll wear a hole and blow right through them. You can overwork a machine and blow a line. O-rings can go bad on them. There's just a multitude of hydraulic seals can go bad. So hydraulic issues are very common. Engine oil leaks, not a whole lot. Radiator leaks, if it's green and if it's watery, but the water feels like oil, then that's maybe a radiator leak. Or anything like that. So you want to be very cognizant. So if you see something like that, you can kind of be a little aware of it and then see. Air conditionings will leak water, or not leak, but they will condensate. So you'll have water in the summertime that come from air conditioning. And it'll look just like water. So that it may come from the inside of the machine, and in the belly pan is where the drip is. But if it has no oiliness, it's just the air conditioning running. So it won't be a big concern there. So when we walk up to a machine, before you get onto it, before you even crank it up, you're going to want to do your walk around and do your visual inspection. So walk around your machine, look at it. If it's a new machine to you, has it been greased? Okay, you're looking for all your joints, your track's tight, that kind of stuff. You're looking up under it and you're seeing if any oil's leaking. And then if it's not, you can say, okay, well, I'm going to start by looking. Maybe I'm going to pull the engine oil first. So if you're on an excavator, you're going to climb up. Always, always, always use 3 points of contact. That means 1, you got 2 feet, and 3. So if I reach up and I grab another one, I can then lift my foot. It's not a OSHA reg that way, but it's a good habit, because there's going to be a day you're going to, maybe one thing slips and you've got another. Okay, good. Be steady, be smooth, be confident about what you're doing. And if you need to clean it off, rake off your boots a little bit. When you're getting up here, you can see he's in a tough position right here. He's standing in the appropriate areas because they have skid tape down. He's got his proper work boots on. But you got to be careful, because you know what? Great, it's a nice, beautiful sunny day, but we're not always checking oil on sunny days. It can be windy. There's a latch back here. Use that latch. Make sure it is firmly latched. If this thing gets a gust of wind, snatches it back, and then pushes it forward, you got to make sure it's going to stay latched. If it isn't, you need to get the mechanic out there and have it straightened out, because you don't want to take this big lid and get hit in the head with it or something. It's very heavy. So if you'll notice, he's got a full grip over here on his rod for his dipstick here. So making sure you don't drop it. There's a ring, got that ring on there. Put that finger in there, pull it out, hold it securely, wipe it off, reinsert all the way flush, and then pull it back out. Do not hold it down. Do not hold it up. Hold it level. Read the stick. It should be 50% in the hash, 50% not. It can be up to the full. If you get below the 50%, you need to notify your foreman and then he will get with Kurt, and he'll top you off or something. So you need to be 50% because say you're on an excavator. If you're working on a slope, you don't want to be on the low side. But, a little too much is always a little better than not enough. But both of them, you keep them in between the hash, okay? So it's very critical. Try when you pull it out, try not to drip it everywhere and get it, you do this every day, you're going to have oil everywhere. So be cognizant. And another thing what will happen is everywhere you touch will then start collecting dust. And then you go put it back in here the next day, that dipstick hits that dust. Guess where that dust goes? All the way down in the bottom of the crankcase. So keep that area clean, keep your dipstick back clean, and then run it back in there. Typically, we will put 10W40 Rotella. That is a diesel oil, not just 10W40 or something, or 20W50. The 15W40 Rotella is typically what we use in all of our engines, and that's kind of standard. You can see right here on the oil fill cap, if you aren't familiar with filling it up with oil or topping it off, let somebody else do it that's more comfortable, that's got some experience doing it. Let them do it. When you're checking this stuff in the mornings, and this is why we like to do things in the morning right here, because the turbo, look there, that thing can get up to 1,000 degrees. That thing gets hot. This whole DPF filter system, that thing gets hot too. So it's nice to do it in the morning when everything's cool, when everything has settled down to the bottom of the crankcase. You don't have to worry about checking it and having a lot of oil up here on top of the head. It's all settled down. You know exactly how much you want it. So when we check our oil, make sure it's, again, in the hash marks and you're clear and understanding of what you got going on. Always carry a little rag to wipe yourself off. It's very important. When you're checking your hydraulic fluid, you're going to want to make sure it's in the glass there, and you're going to want to make sure that it's usually, you have to look a little bit in the owner's manual and find out where the bucket placement needs to be. If the skid steer, it needs to be crowded all the way in or out, because when the cylinder's out, it's using that fluid. So what you want to make sure of is that you've got the proper amount in there, because if you extend all your stuff out, you've used all the fluid. And if you ain't got enough, it won't extend out. But if you crowd everything in, you close all those cylinders, then it's blowing out of the top. You got too much fluid. So having the proper amount is important. So if you're on an excavator, you're going to open up the back rear door, and you're going to go over there and look inside the sight glass. Now, typically, they'll have a symbol in there of what position the excavator boom needs to be in. If the bucket needs to be, splayed out there, or if it needs to be curled in, or, set like this, or however. And a lot of times you can find that in owner's manual or Google it real quick. Oil level. And what you're going to look for is usually, if I can find one, is a little clear tube on the back panel. It's usually on the pump side of the excavator there, that you can look, a little sight glass like this right here. There's a little sight glass here, low, high, right there in the middle. Again, this is another one. It's just going to be on the side of a tank. So you got the radiator side, the operator side, and then you're going to have this one over here. If you get in the skid steer, it's right there on your bottom below your right heel. So you'll have to find it and see where it is. Typically on a skid steer, Bobcat, all the cylinders are going to be down, bucket's going to be rocked back, and you're going to want it about 2/3 full right there. Excavators, about 50-50 in the sight glass. See if I can find you a little sight glass here. Sometimes on the excavators, they're on the other side of the tank on the Mini X's there. Like on this excavator here, you would open up this door panel right here and look in there and find it right there on the side of the tank. Quick example here. This is a dry joint from not being greased. So if your joints are looking like that, just remember, you make sure. Here you got something that says red and green, but that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for that little sight glass on the side of the tank there. I don't seem to have one here on the side of the tank here, but on wheel loaders, they may be up here in the center section right here. So just find that. If you don't know where that's at, find it and make sure, because you can burn up a hydraulic pump And what'll happen is inside the hydraulic pump, they have a slosh plate that's rocking here like this. It's on brass and soft metals. And if it runs dry, it'll chew it up and it spits fines throughout the whole entire system and contaminates the whole system. You're looking at 50, 60 grand all day to get it fixed. You know, if you start noticing a lot of your seals are leaking like this, you're going to be wanting to be aware of your hydraulics and your fluid levels. So, if you got a new machine, it's not leaking that much, you don't expect it to be low, but always check it. Always check. So it's very important. You can have filters in the system. There's going to be a large tank filter typically within a Traco tank in the top. That's in there, and then they'll have usually a micron filter that looks more like this, and that'll catch all the fines and whatnot. So they usually have a dual filter, so that it'll catch a little bit, but it still puts contaminants all the way through the system. Hydraulic fluid doesn't have to be changed very often. To be frank with you, most of the time through working out here, clearing and doing whatever, we're blowing lines and having to refill it. So that's almost like the oil change process there. But I would say after 1,000, 2,000 hours, we need to make sure we're changing our fluids. So it's important to keep regular maintenance there as well. When you're looking at your hydraulic fluid level and you're making sure it's in the proper thing, do a hydraulic hose inspection. If you start seeing some wet spots, the dustier it is, and then that'll help you narrow it down. And then when you start seeing the wetter it is, you look at the dust and it's drier, but it starts getting wetter and wetter, that'll lead you to where that leak is. And then the wetter it is, that's just where it is. So if you start seeing dust collect around them and whatnot, go over and check them out. If you can wiggle that hose a little bit and you notice something, let's let one of the foremans know, and if he feels like it's just a little tightened and it's okay, or it's actually been loose, and if it's been loose for a little while, the hydraulic fluid will actually cut through the rubber, and it's like a pressure, just burns through that rubber. So you have to replace the O-ring. You can't tighten it anymore. It's done. You have to replace the O-ring. If it's a bad hose fitting, say one of these cramps have gone bad, then just going to replace the hose. We'll go get one made, shut the machine down for a little bit, and the mechanic will get one made, put you back in action, fill you back up, and go. While let's say, for instance, you do have a breakdown. Once you have that breakdown, the mechanic is still there. You're going to ask the mechanic, say, hey, Mr. Mechanic, would you mind hanging around 15 minutes? Let me run this thing through a few cycle times. Cycle it out, use it, get it hot, get the air bubbles out, burp it a little bit, make sure it's okay. Pull it back to the side and say, hey, Mr. Mechanic, come by here, take a look at me. Am I still good on my level? You still like it? Any more leaks? Let him do a final check on you and send you on your way. That way, you don't have any liability of something going down. He's approved you. You're checked out. You're good to go. So you can go back to operating. You don't have to worry about anything else. So making sure all that's done and completed is very important. So if you're on the machines and you're feeling something odd in the hydraulic system, stop, pause, shut it down, have the mechanic check it out for you, and I'd see what they got. If you're dealing with these hydraulic systems, some of the joysticks are electric over hydraulics, so they have electric solenoids. It's not, electric, or the old hydraulic buttons that are up under the joysticks. They're kind of going fly-by-wire now, so they have a different feel now these days. But it's very important. Check your oils. Stay on top of your hydraulic fluids. Stay on top of your radiator fluid. Things like that. Radiator fluid must be checked in the morning, never in evenings, never when hot. Ever, ever, ever when hot. Typically, it's done by the mechanic. You shouldn't have. If you don't notice a leak, you don't have to check it that often. But if you feel like there's something there, always check it in the mornings. Every winter, the mechanic will go by and do a test on it to make sure. He'll suck a little sample out to make sure it meets the minimum requirements for freeze proof, for anything like that. So just be cognizant. If you're ever on top of the Traco and you look to the left over there by the tank and there's this little button and you tap it and it lets a little air out, that is a pressure relief valve. So when the tank gets hot after you working it that day, that it can relieve some pressure in and out. See, if you tap it and it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. You can tap it and hold it. It's not a problem. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to hurt you. Don't forget, hydraulic fluid is not an engine fluid, but it gets really, really hot. Cycling it and going through the pumps and being squished and pressurized heats up that fluid. So when you're touching cylinders at the end of the day, be careful. Grabbing hoses. Be careful where your hands go. They do get hot. They do get warm. Be cognizant of those types of things. So, okay. So if you got any more questions, guys, feel free to reach out. Call me, and we'll address whatever you need. Thanks.